Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create sort of a poster from scratch. Um, the easiest way to create a poster for the research is to use a template that is sort of already in place by getting a previous research poster. So we have a presentations folder in the research drive. In there, you can find a bunch of these old presentations from previous years and previous students, right? And one of the easiest ways to sort of um, make your start in your poster is to find a very recent version so that all of your background and everything is set and all of your graphics are okay, and then just delete everything off the poster and start from scratch. So this is the poster we're going to be building today. This is an old poster I did, and so we're going to start from square one, right? So I've deleted everything off of the poster except for um, just the like what I need to start. So the first thing we want is to put in our title and our author information. So title should always be bold, right? And it is, it's descriptive of whatever you are trying to make. And so, you might say like heteroaryl isoflavonone dot dot dot, and then usually you want to put a semicolon and then whatever your subtitle is. So maybe you are doing diketone reactions, right? Or you're doing domino screening or whatever, right? And so the subtitle here after this semicolon, and this can be on another line as well if your main title is too long. This subtitle is describing um, sort of what the actual research is about. And then the sort of main title is your overall research. When you're doing author information, you want to list the name of the people that are working on and going to be presenting the poster first, right? So this is my poster. I'm presenting it alone. So I underline and I name myself first, right? And you can underline and bold using the B here is for bold, and the U is for underline. You can also do Control U and Control B. So I put a comma, Control U, and then I do author 2, comma, author 3, comma, dot, 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 all the way until I get to the last two authors. And then I put the name of the last author, second to last author, sorry. And then you say, and Lily Ma, right? The way you want to format this here is you always want to end your author list this way, where you do author and then Dr. Ma always is going to go last on these posters, right? And you don't want to put a comma here. You don't want to put Dr. Lily Ma or anything. This is sort of the publication format. And so this is how we want to make our posters, right? So after we get all of our title information and stuff set up here, we're going to move on to actually putting some text on our posters, right? We have this address that doesn't change, right? And so that can just stay the same. And we have our author set out and we have our titles done. So there's a couple of ways that you can make your own text box. One thing that you can do, if there's a text box already and you just want to keep the formatting the same, you can click on the text box using this little, you see sort of the four pointed arrows. Now it's selected in sort of the move state, and you can copy it either by right clicking, or you can do Control C to copy, and then you can click Control V to paste it. And now you have a pre-formatted text box that you can simply delete the text out of, and then you can start typing as much as you need to, right? So that's one way that you can make a text box. If you don't want to do that, or for some reason you need a special size one, or you're just starting from scratch, you can make your own text box. You can use this little button up here in the drawing, or you can come over here to Insert, over to the Text section, and you click on Text Box. Now you want to draw out your text box. It can be any size because you can always resize this later. And I always like to put in even if it's just random, a couple of letters to start with, because sometimes with PowerPoint, if you create a text box and then you click off without having any words in there or anything, it becomes kind of hard to find that empty text box again, right? Because it's so small and it's hard to see, right? So what I want to do is I want to start formatting this text, right? So I always like to do the titles kind of first. So let's make this our introduction. Okay. One thing I want to do for the title is I want to center the title. So I come up here to the paragraph in your home section and I click on the center option. So now our title is centered. I want all of the titles on this to be bolded, so I can click on this bold button, or you can click Control B. And then I want to make sure the font is the same, the font size. So I know that this abstract title up here is size 54. So I come up and I change the font size. This is all the exact same as doing it in Word, right? You all have to use Word or some similar program. And then you come down and I want to start writing the text. I want this to be smaller. I know that I use 40 for the text size and I don't want it to be bolded anymore. So let's just put in some random letters and words here for a little bit while I talk a little bit about this. You can use any sort of text size and sort of whatever you want in terms of your text size, your titles, your text versus your titles. I do enjoy 54 and 40. I think it's very easy to read when you're presenting. However, one thing to note is that you can change this if you need to fit it. So for instance, if you're running out of space towards the end, you can make the text, instead of being 40, maybe you make it 36. I wouldn't go much lower than that because it would be hard to see, right? Already it's a little hard to see from this distance, so we might need to zoom in to sort of understand what we're writing, right? And see that. But that's just sort of the way it is, right? Sometimes it's hard to see on here, but it's a little easier to see when you're doing a big presentation. Now, one last thing I'd really think is nice to do on this text, you can see that in this abstract block here, the text is nice and square. The way you do that is you select all of your text, and in your paragraph section, you hit this justify key. What that does is it causes all of the text to be put out in a square. So for instance, if I take all this abstract text and I instead do normal like left justification like we do in Word documents and stuff, you can see now it has all of it's sort of ragged on this edge, right? There's all these spaces and stuff because it's trying to push all the text to the left. That doesn't look very professional on posters, right? And so having it be justified instead, so now it's a nice, neat square and the line is very nice and easy to see. That's actually really helpful. And it's helpful for you when you are designing it because now you know that there is a straight up and down line that all of this text is going to be on. And so you know that you can start putting things right next to it and you won't ever have any overlap, right? And so that is how you can handle text. So we've got all our text on here, right? So all of the sections that I think I want to put on here at the end, we've gone ahead and we put on here. So now we're going to try and insert a table, right? So we're going to come over here to the insert section, and right underneath of that, there's this table section. There's a couple ways to do this. One thing you can do is if you make something in Excel, usually you can insert that Excel document right down here as a table, and that can be helpful too if you don't like using the tables in PowerPoint. That's perfectly okay. Some people don't, and that's fine. If you're just making something really simple and quick, you can sort of draw out your table here on this little sort of work pad. So you can make it sort of any size you want. Say you only want a 3x8 table. Then you can use these sort of movement keys here at the corners to resize this table to whatever size you need it to be. Be careful when you do this. As you see, when you're starting to move your cursor inside of a table, you get these sort of weird sort of ones. So this cursor means you can move this cell from side to side. It's a little easier to see, I think, with this one. So if you move this cell side to side, right, you're making this first column smaller and you're making this last column and this middle column bigger. So you want to be careful you're not doing that. And then it's the same with vertical and horizontal, right? So you can sort of stretch and unstretch all of these rows as you need be. As you draw this column, so that's the first way to draw it. Another way is if you need more, this can only go up to a maximum of 10 by 8. So say you need only 3 columns, but you actually need 10 rows. You can come down here to this button that says Insert Table, and you can manually put in how many columns and how many rows you want. So we want 3 columns, 10 rows, and you hit OK, and then it just makes it for you, right? You can resize it as need be and put it wherever you need it to go, right? Another thing that's really helpful to know is sort of the design function of these. So as you click it, normally it auto opens, but as you can see up here at the top, there's a little sort of thing that says Table Tools. And in Design, right in this big middle section, it's Table Styles, you can see there's a whole bunch of different styles. And when you click them, it changes sort of how your table is presented. These are pre-designed so that it's basically all ready to go and very easy to see. I personally am a huge fan of this one right here. It's just the simple highlighted outline squares. But you can go as design heavy as you want. Be cautious with how much designing you do, because remember that, you know, we're trying to convey information in an easy to read format. So using something like this is fine, but if you have a bunch of random colors, so if you have this one here and then this one over this second table, right, is this weird green color, and then you have a third table up here that's red, and there's no really like rhyme or reason to it, you can cause people to sort of not understand like what's going on. If you put color in there and it's not just a design choice as something you keep constant, right? So if both of these tables are this purple, that's fine. That's the design choice you've made for that poster, right? But if you're just throwing a bunch of colors out there without having any purpose, it can cause people to get a little confused, right? So that's this. I do personally really like this table. Another really good one is any of these that are sort of these offset lines, right? That it's very easy for people to read even from far away. And you know, if you want there to be lines in between, so you can go through these and you can use anything that you really want to, right? And that is just how you insert a table, right? Additionally, one thing that I always like to do when I make my first table, so let's delete this table. Let's pull this up as if we're going to edit this one so I can show you some more tools on here, right? So right now, when you first create a table on base, all the text is left justified, right? And this one's bolded because that's the table style that I used. If you click a new table style, it changes all of that for you, right? So you can kind of adjust that as need be. One of the things that I like to do is when I first get these tables, if you sort of do your highlight tool, but you click more than one square, it'll highlight all of those sort of cells. I always like to do this, come back to this home column, and then you can center all the text, right? And you can do this for some of them, right? If you only want to center maybe this middle row, you can do that. If you want to center these two, you can, or maybe only for some reason these ones. I think it looks really good centered, but sometimes there's a reason not to center it, right? Sometimes you want things to be justified to one side or another. Doing square really doesn't do much in a table unless you have lots and lots of text in these cells, which I wouldn't recommend, right? Tables are supposed to be very simple and very easy to read. Beyond that, everything else is optional. This is the basics you need to insert a table. Next, we'll talk about using keys and stuff like that. So as you can see, I've inserted 2 tables and I've put some text into them already, right? Now what I want to do, you can see I've already done it with this right-hand table. But what I want to do with this left-hand table is I want to highlight some of these text boxes, right? So say, for instance, this one in particular experiment went really, really well. And I want to highlight that one so people look at that and they ask questions. We can come back up into design, and one of the things you can do here is shading, and this is almost like a highlight tool, and you can pick a color to fill this with. So say you want to highlight this, you click this highlighter yellow color, and now that one's highlighted, right? And that's good because now that one has a reason. If that's highlighted for some reason, you can say, oh yeah, that one's important, and then this one additionally is also important. If you've done it once and this is underlined, you can just click the bucket icon and it'll highlight whatever you have selected. If you do this, right, if you highlight things for a specific reason, or for instance, if you do what I did over here and you input colors for some reason to signify something, you need to have a key. So this table key, it's very simply made. This is just a text box that I have input, and I put a bunch of spaces right before these labels, right? So let's zoom in a little bit on this table key, right? So this is just a simple text box, and then I've put a bunch of spaces right before whatever these labels are. What I like to do is you can select these spaces, and then you can use sort of your text tools, just like in Word over here, and you can highlight those text. And so now, say you have whatever colors might mean, right? And these colors are all the same. If you need more colors, you can sort of pick recent colors that you've used, or you could even go into design and you can get more colors that way. So you can get more colors if you need to, but really all the colors you should need are pretty much in here. And you can highlight these as need be, right? And so that's a great way to sort of make this table key if you're using colors. Do be wary if you use colors that people who are colorblind might have sort of a hard time seeing what you're trying to do with it. So just be cautious when you're using colors. Try and make them very distinct shades. Try not to mix things like, greens and reds. Green-red colorblindness is the most common, right? Try not to do shades that are very close. Try and make them very, very separate to try and make sure everyone can kind of see what's going on, right? As you can see, I've gone through and I've put the colors in and I've fixed my table key. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to put some actual structures on this PowerPoint. So what you want to do is you want to open ChemDraw. This is something that we have on all of the lab computers, and all the computers in NKU have access to this through the chemistry server. And you can also get kind of the free trial at home. It's very easy and very simple to do. And this is a very good chemical drawing software, but we're not going to talk too much about that. We're just going to try and get these structures that I've already drawn onto our PowerPoint. So you see here in the tools section, I have the marquee, the select tool, and I'm going to select this big block right here because I want to put all of this in one block, right? So Control C to copy, or you can left click and click copy. Then I come over here, and on here I want to paste, and I want to make sure I'm pasting it regular. You do not want to paste it as a picture. The reason you want to paste it sort of in this regular format is because if you paste it as a picture, then sometimes there is problems if you try to bring it back into ChemDraw to edit something, right? Maybe you open this poster, it's right before the conference, or right before you're going to print your poster, and you're like, oh no, there's a problem. I need to re-upload this into ChemDraw real quick, fix a little issue, and then I can do it again. Instead of having to search through all of your ChemDraw documents to find whichever one it is that you were trying to make here, instead you can just, if this is pasted regularly like this, you can just copy this sort of almost this box right back into ChemDraw, right? And you can just paste it back in, and now you can edit whatever you need to, right? So say you need to make this really stretchy or something, right? You can do whatever you need to. You need to change this text box really quickly needs to change, or you need to make this not say model reaction, whatever you need to do. And then you can just select it again, can copy it again, and then paste it back into your PowerPoint. If you use a picture, if you paste it as a picture, sometimes that doesn't work. And then you're stuck. You have to spend time redrawing everything or searching through all of these. So you can do that. If you copy something as like this big long box, right? So if you box everything on PowerPoint, it's going to stay as one continuous image, sort of this one big box here. So you aren't able really to separate out specific pieces. It's all moving as one. If you want to do the specific pieces, so say for instance, I want to take this structure right here, and I want to copy that into my table. All right, so we come back over here, V, and then I'm just going to scooch this up and move it into my table. Now I can move this separately, right? And so if you wanted to, you could potentially put all of these compounds in a row on ChemDraw and copy the row over. The problem, again, being with that is that if you need to resize one of them for some reason, you can't resize one, you have to resize all. So I think it's best, even though it's a little labor intensive, to simply copy each one in individually, because then you don't have to worry about having to sort of mess around with the sizing on things and making everything fit. You can just put it in, adjust it, and if you notice a mistake, you can just real quick copy that one specific structure, fix it, put it back in, right? And that's really all there is to ChemDraw. Sometimes if you have a more modern program, you can open ChemDraw almost like a sort of an in-document worksheet and then edit things on the fly. I think it's best to just copy and paste back and forth. And that's really it for ChemDraw. So now that we've put all of our pieces together, this is really like the end of our poster is made. If you want to insert pictures, so say for instance you have an NMR spectra that you want to insert for some reason, the easiest way to do that is to come up here to Insert, and then just click Picture. Most of the time, when you save a NMR, you're saving it as a PNG file or some form of picture file, right? So you can just insert that right from here, and you can insert pictures right from your computer right onto your poster. There is a folder for group pictures, so if you want to change whatever picture is in the top corner, you can change it to a different group picture, and you do that the same way. You just insert pictures from our group pictures folder in the drive. Beyond that, everything is the same. The only real thing you want to be aware of, you can see there's a little bit of white space on this poster. It's a little bit spread out. In general, you actually don't want to do that. You want to try and minimize your white space. You want there to be a little bit of a gap between things so there's no overlap, especially in case there's anything wrong with printers, right? You want to be careful with stuff like that. But you want to make sure that if there's a lot of white space, so like for instance down here, there should be something here, right? If this white space is all here, maybe we move the references over there, right? And we can shrink that up and make it smaller so it's not running off the page. And now we have this big box over here where we could maybe put a little NMR spectra or something in there. So just be aware that you're trying to maximize the information that's on this poster. And if you need help with what any of these pieces individually actually mean, what an introduction is or whatever, there is an advanced video that you can watch. This is just to help you with making the poster from scratch. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you very much.